wish to welcome you to the session of the second edition of the Aswan Forum on Sustainable Peace and Development through Arts, Culture and Heritage. My name is Ahmad Abdellatif. I am the Executive Director of the Aswan Forum and the Director General of the Cairo Center for Conflict Resolution, Peacekeeping and Peacebuilding. Unfortunately, our Minister of Culture, the Egyptian Minister of Culture, Dr. Ines Abdeldaim, could not be with us at this moment due to unforeseen circumstances. So I will have the pleasure of moderating this session. I'm delighted to be doing this because at the Aswan Forum Secretariat, when we were doing the preparations for this edition, when it was brought to our attention that the African Union theme of the year for 2021 was arts, culture, and heritage, we immediately were keen to ensure that this theme is also addressed in the Aswan Forum this year, looking at its intersection with peace, culture, and security and sustainable development. Just as a few words of introduction, the African Union and many of its policy instruments highlight the importance of culture, art, and heritage in peace building, reconciliation, conflict prevention, and preventing radicalization and extremism. And they have a great potential to be contributing to peaceful societies and to be important tools for sustaining peace. Notably, I think there's a shared belief that we can only achieve a peaceful and secure Africa by nurturing a culture of peace in the minds of its societies. In addition to preventing conflicts and sustaining peace, the promotion of culture also plays a pivotal role across the peace continuum in situations where violence has already erupted. A number of African countries witnessed armed conflicts, and in this context, we have seen, particularly in recent years, growing significance of this topic as a number of non-state actors, such as terrorist groups, have also been involved in the destruction of cultural heritage in conflict settings, further exacerbating conflict and hindering post-conflict reconciliation efforts. And I think it is important to note in this regard that the United Nations Security Council included safeguarding cultural heritage in the mandate, for example, of a peacekeeping operation in Mali, MINUSMA, which is the first and only peacekeeping mission to be tasked with such a directive. So we have a very rich number of topics to examine under this broad heading of sustainable peace and developments through arts, culture, and heritage, including also one issue that is of importance for African countries, which is the issue of the restitutions of their heritage and cultural artifacts that are in some cases abroad. And this is also a topic of importance for Egypt. So to address these questions, we have a very distinguished panel. I will start by introducing the speakers and give them around 8 minutes for their intervention. Our first speaker is His Excellency Jomo Francisco Fortunato, the Minister of Culture, Tourism and Environment of the Republic of Angola. Is he online? I understand he's not online, so we will go to our next speaker. I hope he will be able to join us. Our next speaker is Mr. Fermin Eduardo Matoko, the Assistant Director General, Priority for Africa and External Relations at UNESCO. Mr. Matoko, UNESCO has, of course, a critical role in all these issues and have been working them for a number of years. So we'd like to invite you to shed lights on what of some of the lessons learned in UNESCO's flagship programs to better employ arts, education, and cultural heritage to contribute to peace building, peacemaking, and preventing radicalizations and extremism. What are the main challenges in implementing these programs in promoting a culture of peace across Africa? And we understand that also the UNESCO is working in partnership with the African Union in the celebration of the African Year for Culture, Arts and Heritage. And we were also looking forward to maybe hear further about that, and if it includes also this aspect of the contribution of culture, heritage to peace. Over to you, Mr. Matoko. Is Mr. Matoko in the session? Yes, can you hear me? I think we're having a technical problem. Is our next speaker Mrs. Angela Martins? Is she on the session? Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, Mrs. Martins. Wonderful to have you. Thank you for being with us, and we'd be very grateful if you could shed some further light on the initiatives envisaged by the African Union Commission for the AU Year of the Arts, Culture and Heritage, including to promote a culture of peace across the African continent. Is the issue that I mentioned of restitution of African culture heritage included, for instance? And how can the African Union seize the opportunity of this year to leverage its rich arts and culture diversity as pillars for peace building, conflict prevention, and conflict resolution across the continent? A pleasure to have you again. Over to you, Mrs. Martins.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator and Director. And thank you very much for inviting the African Union Commission for this meeting. With regards to the activities envisaged for the Year of Arts, Culture and Heritage, in summary, I would like to mention that we have 4 main broad areas. The first area that we have is the Continental Arts, Culture and Heritage policies. So the first policy instrument which we would like to popularize during the Year of Arts, Culture and Heritage is the Charter for African Cultural Renaissance. You might be aware that this instrument was adopted in 2006 by the African Union Assembly. To date, we have about 14 member states that have ratified the instrument, and quite a big number of other member states that have started the process of ratification through the signature. We require 1 more member state to ratify the instrument for it to enter into force. So we expect to launch the Charter for African Cultural Renaissance during this year. So let me use this opportunity to call upon member states to fast track their processes of ratification of this instrument so that we use the Year of Arts and Culture for it to enter into force. Another instrument, policy instrument that we have and we would like to popularize is the Statute of the African Audiovisual and Cinema Commission, which is aimed at developing the creative industry of audiovisual and cinema on the continent. Another instrument is the AU Plan of Action for Africa, Promotion of African Languages. So it's called the Languages Plan of Action for Africa, and it is aimed at promoting African languages. This is also an instrument which was adopted in 2006, and it is spearheaded by the African Academy of Languages with headquarters in Bamako, Mali. So during this year, our objective will be to review and disseminate further this instrument. We also have inscribed in the roadmap of the Year of Arts, Culture, and Heritage, the development of a continental arts education policy in order to provide a guide for AU member states for the inclusion of arts education in the school curriculum, given that very few African Union member states have this provision in their curriculum. You know that arts education should start at a very early stage in the development of the education level of our children. So we want to develop this continental policy. The second area which we have inscribed in the roadmap on the Year of Arts, Culture, and Heritage is creative economy initiatives. In this regard, we are planning to launch and popularize the revised African Union Plan of Action on Cultural and Creative Industries. This document, this policy instrument, was first developed in 2008, adopted by the Assembly. But in 2018, member states requested the African Union to review, to include contemporary approaches in the creative economy sector in the document. This exercise was done and it has been finalized. So during this month of March, at the end of March, we are going to undertake a validation workshop of the revised document. And then from there, we are going to present it for final approval by the Specialized Technical Committee on Youth, Culture, and Sport. In the creative economy, again, we have the operationalization of the Secretariat of the African Audiovisual and Cinema Commission, which will have its headquarters temporarily in Nairobi, Kenya. Area number 3 is heritage protection and promotion. Activities related to the heritage protection and promotion are related to the national legislation on cultural property and heritage. So in this regard, the African Union has developed the African Union Model Law on the protection of cultural property and heritage for AU member states to use as a guide to revise their national legislation or to develop their own national legislation in this area. The moderator mentioned the issue of restitution of African cultural property. You also might be aware that the AUC, in collaboration with the government of Algeria, are in the process of establishing the Great Museum of Africa, a flagship project of the AU Agenda 2063, and has recommended by the Ministers of Arts, Culture, and Heritage, the Great Museum of Africa should serve as a continental hub to initiate and undertake negotiations on the return or restitution of cultural property and heritage. In this regard, the temporary secretariat of the Great Museum of Africa will be launched on the 25th of May, 2021, also as part of the Year of Arts, Culture, and Heritage. Another activity that it is also inscribed related to heritage protection, as you might be aware, is the launch of the Grand Egyptian Museum or the Museum of Giza in Cairo, which is also an activity on the roadmap. We are also, as the AUC, partnering with the African World Heritage Fund and UNESCO to strengthen the work of the African World Heritage Fund and increase African World Heritage sites in the World Heritage List. This was also mentioned by the moderator. Focus area number 4 will be the promotion of a culture for peace, which we will be working with the Republic of Angola and UNESCO. I'm sure Mr. Matoko will address this in more detail. So we see the second Luanda Biennale on a Culture for Peace, which is planned to take place in September this year, has an opportunity for the continent to use arts, culture, and heritage has vehicles of peace building on the continent. With regards to the other second question that I was addressed, which is how can the African Union leverage the rich arts, culture, and heritage diversity of its member states, has pillars for conflict prevention, conflict resolution, and peace building. You are also aware that Africa is endowed with a rich and diverse culture. In order to leverage this heritage, has pillars for conflict prevention, resolution, and peace building, we need to, as the African Union, promote our African identity and Africanness, and this is clearly stated in the Charter for African Cultural Renaissance, the African Union Agenda 2063, aspiration number 5, and this is what guides basically the work of the Union. Number 2, we need to promote and develop more initiatives on the culture for peace, including the revival of the Make Peace Happen campaign, which was an African Union flagship project. We also have to promote our shared values. We also need to use the potential role that our traditional leaders can play as custodians of our culture. In the roadmap on the Year of Arts, Culture, and Heritage, we also have inscribed an activity to work with the traditional leaders in order to strengthen this collaboration and to use them since they are the custodians of our culture. Activity number 5, we use oral traditions as sources and history. We will be collaborating with UNESCO in reviving the project of the General History of Africa and also the Encyclopedia Africana project, which is a flagship project of the African Union Agenda 2063 also. The AU has...
Marcus, can I ask you to wrap up your intervention?
I'm about to wrap up, thank you. The AU has a specialized agency called the Center for Linguistic Studies Through Oral Traditions, which will be spearheading activities on the promotion of history and oral tradition. Also, we need to use the various African festivals to build social cohesion, very important in order to build a culture for peace on the continent. And finally, we need to promote a positive image of Africa. All the activities that I mentioned can assist us in providing or in showcasing this positive image of our continent and in building the Africa we want. I thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Martins, for this very comprehensive overview of the work and the initiatives and the activities of that the African Union is envisaging for the celebration of this African Union Year for Arts, Culture, and Heritage. Is very comprehensive, and thank you also for pointing specifically to the activities and initiatives relating to peace and the promotion of a culture for peace. I understand that we have been joined by a distinguished representative from Angola. Is Angola with us? Yes, are we joined by, I think, Her Excellency?
Yes, Secretary.
Yes, Mrs. Berato?
Alice Bayram.
Okay, maybe until Angola fully is able to join us, I will go to Mr. Fermin Edouard Matoko, the Assistant Director General for Priority Africa and External Relations at UNESCO. Thank you very much for being with us. I think UNESCO, the relationship between culture and peace is very much present in UNESCO since its establishment. The founding charter of UNESCO mentions peace and elevating peace in the minds of men. So that is already intrinsic in UNESCO. But if you can shed us a bit further light on some recent work of UNESCO in this area, and that is becoming also very timely. It's timely for us at the Aswan Forum because of this link between arts, culture, heritage, and how they can contribute to peace building, peacemaking, and preventing radicalization and extremism. And what are the main challenges we face in promoting a culture of peace across Africa? Over to you, Ms. Matoko. Mr. Matoko.
Yes, good afternoon, Excellencies, dear colleagues, panelists. Thank you, Ambassador. First of all, let me thank the government of Egypt for inviting us to this forum, and also the organizers of the CCCPA of the forum for organizing this forum on the theme of art, culture, and heritage. We are particularly pleased to be part of this session, as you said, moderator, because the culture is at the heart of the mandate of UNESCO since its foundation in 1946. I mean, the Constitution says that it is in the mind of the man that we have to build the defenses of peace through culture, education, communication, etc. But particularly by using culture as a way to change the mindset of the people. Secondly, we are pleased also to be part of this session because, as you know, Africa is one of the two global priorities for UNESCO, along with gender. And as such, it's been already more than 25 years that we are targeting Africa in our different areas of competence, and in particular in culture. Let me just remind that no less than 10 years ago, culture was not seen as a vital catalyst for the development. I mean, it's been only over the last 10 years that we have seen, especially in Africa, a lot more attention on the contribution of the cultural sector to the development of the continent. And that's also, I want to remind that that also was the result of a joint action with the African Union back in Sudan in 2006, when we worked together on an agenda for culture and education in Africa. So that's important to remind. Our cooperation with the African Union is a long cooperation, and we are very proud to join the Commission in celebrating, in organizing, in partnering in this particular year, the 2021, the year of the art, culture, and heritage. Let me give you some milestone in our work to promote culture as a very enabler for and contributor to sustainable development. You know, one of the functions of UNESCO is also the production of normative instruments. And I just want to recall that at the request of Egypt and Sudan in 1959, UNESCO launched the international campaign to save the monument of Nubia. And that was one of the most emblematic and successful project that UNESCO was able to implement in Africa. Today, the World Heritage Convention on World Heritage cultural heritage enjoys quasi-universal ratification, and over 1,000 properties of outstanding universal value, including 7 sites in your country, Excellency, in Egypt, and close to 1,100 magnificent and diverse properties in Africa are inscribed on the World Heritage list. It is important also to remind that we have been working also on the protection of cultural properties in the event of armed conflicts. And we have, of course, the Convention on 1954, which has been very useful in the context of Mali. Just if you remember, during the conflict in Mali and particularly in Timbuktu, with the MINUSMA and the rest of the United Nations and Mali, were able to rebuild, were able to prevent further deterioration of the cultural property in Timbuktu. On that particular issue of the Timbuktu World Heritage Site in Mali, I want to remember also that the International Criminal Court assessed the damage caused by Ahmad al-Faqi al-Mahdi in 2012 and sentenced him to 99 years imprisonment in September 2016. So that's the first time that this type of crimes were viewed and the people condemned for that. More recently, I want to recall also what the impact of the COVID-19 crisis on the cultural sector, particularly in Africa, and with all our partners, including the African Union, the regional economic community. We are also able to provide technical assistance to African country to overcome that and to make sure that the culture sector is not left behind in the reconstruction process. The program which we call Resiliart was meant to convey the message that culture is and should be part of this recovery process. You mentioned the Biennale of Luanda. I see that there is a representative from the Angolan government that will be able to give more insight on the preparation of the second edition. Let me say that we are very proud that the first edition went very well, thanks to our collaboration with the government of Angola, with some private partners, with African government and head of state that were present in Luanda. Let me finish by the one issue that is becoming very, very crucial also when we talk about a cultural renaissance of Africa, and especially during this year. The issue of the fight against illicit trafficking and restitution of cultural property. This program that UNESCO, following a resolution of the executive board of UNESCO and put forward by the Africa group recently, has led to the elaboration of a flagship program to support African member states in this area. The flagship program will have two objectives. First of all, capacity building and also helping African member states in the dialogue with the other countries. This is important. I think that we are all aware that this is one of the main aspiration of our 2063 agenda, aspiration 5, that it is important that all those goods be restituted in Africa, and the UNESCO is very committed to that. Angela mentioned something about the creative economy. We are also working on that in creating an environment, especially using the digital tools and ensuring that the young people and women in Africa are also beneficiaries of this new technology in terms of culture and promoting the creative economy in Africa. I think that I will stop here, Excellency, and open for questions if necessary. And again, thank you very much for inviting us, and we're very, very happy to be part of this discussion. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your intervention and for also a very useful and rich overview of the work of UNESCO and its different initiatives and instruments in relation to culture, heritage, and including also activities relating to peace. And also very good to know about the recent initiative or program you mentioned that was brought forward by the African group on the issue of restitution, and we maybe in the follow-up we can maybe find a bit further more about this. I think we might have a distinguished speaker from Angola now with us. Is this the case? Has Angola been able to join us? Okay. I hope they're able to join us before the end of the session. Let us go to our next speaker then, Ms. Sylvie Fouet, who is the UNICEF representative in Mali. Thank you very much for being with us. It's a pleasure to have you. Mali has been already mentioned several times in the different intervention, and we understand that the United Nations is particularly involved in this issue in Mali, and I've mentioned how the peacekeeping mission in Mali in particular has a mandate relating to cultural heritage there. So we would, UNICEF, of course, with others, plays an important role as being an actor on the ground there. So we would be very much looking forward to hear from you on the work of the United Nations in Mali in this context, and in terms of also how culture and cultural heritage can promote reconciliation between communities, ensure the preservation of heritage, and also build social coherence and cohesion and resilience in situations of armed conflict. Over to you. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Ambassador, and salamu alaikum. And thank you also for inviting Mali. I just want to share with you, Madame Baranga, our ARC is currently in the field and is in spirit and in heart with us here. So I will speak on behalf of her, so on all the United Nations system in Mali. And indeed, I was very pleased to hear from the previous speakers. I myself personally have seen the Tombouctou area, where the books, as you may know, the Quran has been burned and was protected, and now there is a very intensive way of keeping those books and saving and scanning those cultural heritage. So how important it is, you know, to see things on the ground. Maybe allow me to move, building on the previous speakers, probably the reference also with the, as you know, we have the United Nations system and the integrated mission with MINUSMA. And it's interesting to see one of the DPKO mission's mandate is also how to harness on education, empowering women, youth, to really have that part play, you know, in conflict resolution. So education is really at the heart of the UN system's mandate in Mali, but is also linking the experience with building peace, looking at, you know, eradicating poverty and promoting SDGs. Just a couple of numbers, 1 out of 2 Malians, so 55% of Malians are under 18 years old, so it's a very young population, and about 6 million children, so the age, schooling age is about 6 to 7 to 11 to 12 years old. 3 out of the 6 million, 3.8 million are returning to school, but we know we also have about 2 million that are out of school. So you can see the challenge and the importance of ensuring that young generation is also part of the journey of developing Mali. And the second decade, the major issue is really education and employability. So it's the youth employment is really challenging. So focus is now on education and training program to really improve the quality of education access, but also empowering teen girls in particular and young women, and also how we make the links between education and the market, so to reduce unemployment. The other aspect of that part of the equation is really empowering national capacity, in particular regarding to the SDG. You know, SDG 4 in particular, quality of education, is it's something that has to be looked at in Mali in terms of how the government is doing and how the country is doing, but also in the integrated manner that we're looking at consolidating peace and social cohesion through the other ADGs. So I will not go into details, but that's really a holistic approach. On the critical things you mentioned earlier on how culture and cultural heritage can help in that challenging peace moment in Mali, I think the two areas where really investment is really done in through the mission and the UN system is really dialogue. How the dialogue, we know it's the foundation of living together, but how it is, building back. As you know, the living together in Mali has been shaken from 2012, when the security crisis has been mentioned before, but the major impact has been really the impact on the social fabric and the development. So how, communities were able to cohabit, together and have, a journey. Now we can see in the center of Mali how even self-defense community-based groups are also engaging, not necessarily on the dialogue part, but sometimes with the more conflicting manners. So focus is on revamping that social fabric and setting up every element we can. So for example, they are rebuilding peace and some ministries that have, for example, you have the Ministry of the National Reconciliation and Social Cohesion, that's one element. You have the Truth, Justice, Peace, Reconciliation Commission. It has worked also in other neighboring countries. And it's also completed, as you may heard, by the Alger Peace Accord, which is, has been signed in 2015. So I will say in summary, the nexus of culture, security, and development is really something has to be brought together, and promoting tolerance, non-violence, dialogue, it's really where culture is also taking its part. Culture and development, I may take you one example, has been brought recently. It's, for example, in addition to what the gentleman before mentioned on the importance of keeping, those very special heritage sites that are in Mali, and you have many, it's also addressing that spirit of culture and dialogue within the young community. So we have every year an event that bring together, it's called Equation Nomade, which means, nomadic equations. It means bringing together, it's supported with UNESCO and UNICEF and other agencies in Mali, is really having for the young people the opportunity coming from all the parts of Mali to spend a few days together, but also to exchange together, and more importantly, to really shape the Mali that they want of tomorrow. And as you remember, 1 Malian out of 2 is below 18. So they are the one who will also shape, that journey, bringing the nexus, culture, security, and development. I'll stop here and come back to you if any question. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for really bringing us a perspective from the ground, and for also highlighting a number of very concrete initiatives and programs that contribute to this overall objective of harnessing education and culture for peace and development. Thank you. I think we might have now Angola joining us. If not the case, we will now have a special message that was just recently delivered to us in relation to these themes by Dr. Zay Hawass, the Egyptian Egyptologist, who is very engaged in issues relating to heritage and culture. And when we asked him and we told him about this session and this topic for the Aswan Forum, he very kindly offered to share a message with us that we will be streaming now before we continue possibly with discussions after this. So we'll see the video message now from Dr. Zay Hawass, the Egyptian Egyptologist.
I'm happy to hear that year 2021 is the year for art and culture. I really believe that art and culture are very important, because it makes all of us as African countries to be cooperating and working together on the art and culture. Also, it came in a time, a very important time, that the whole museums everywhere are awakening. They say we have to return the stolen artifacts of Africa to the Africans. And that is a good message. It makes me happy, because Egypt had a great experience in returning stolen artifacts. We returned over 6,000 artifacts back. We hope to return the bust of Nefertiti and Rosetta Stone. But our experience can help many African countries to know how to return the stolen artifacts. Then it's important for all of us as Africans to cooperate and fight these museums to return our heritage back. Egypt is keen. Our president also is very keen on art and culture because we spent $1 billion in making the Grand Museum, the best museum in the world. The artifacts will be shown in a beautiful way. The Civilization Museum, that all the mummies will leave Cairo Museum and go to the Civilization Museum, and the president of Egypt will meet all the mummies. You know why it's important? This is a great message to all the people everywhere that we in Africa have good museums to protect our monuments. That message I want to tell everyone. The Grand Museum, the Civilization Museum will be a good message to everyone. They say, we cannot return with stolen artifacts because you don't have museums, good museums. No, the Grand Museum is going to be the best African museum, and all the people will know that the African people are caring about their heritage. I'm really happy that year 2021 is year for art and culture for Africans. Zahi Hawa.
Well, I hope you were able to watch the video and a lot of passion in it for this topic, and I think a lot of energy and a lot of enthusiasm we see. I think many people we have talked across Africa are excited about the celebration of this year. And I think it brings me to a question. Dr. Hawass mentioned the opening of the Grand Egyptian Museum, other activities that are envisaged for the celebration of this AU year for culture and heritage, but we have also the pandemic that continues, the access to vaccination that is an issue and a challenge in Africa. So, I mean, how do you see culture activities have been negatively impacted by the pandemic and by COVID, museums challenged to open, culture manifestations, a lot of activities moving online. How do you see this adaptation and the response to the pandemic in the cultural sector? And at the same time, the cultural sector is an important engine to rebound, to build forward better, and to recover stronger. If I could raise this question for you from the perspective of where you come from, and if we could start maybe by Mr. Motoko in UNESCO, given that you have a bit the global view on the situation in this context and in the context of the pandemic. Thank you, Mr. Motoko.
Thank you. I did mention something about the impact of the COVID-19 in my intervention. Let me emphasize one thing, that's the culture sector in Africa is characterized by informality. Almost more than 50% of the people employed in the culture sector are employed informally, and that's, of course, those people who were the first victim of the COVID-19 because they lost their revenue, they were in precarious jobs, and we had to tackle that issue from the public sector. So we did many debates. We organized many debates with the actors of the culture sector, with the government. First of all, to raise awareness about the very difficult situation that those people were facing. We even produced some guidelines, policy guides, which we call policy guides for a resilient, creative sector within the convention, our convention, 2005 convention on the protection and promotion of the diversity of cultural expression, to show that this is a big concern in the recovery process, and you have to pay due attention to that, especially because in that area there are a lot of young people and women that are in very, very precarious conditions in the sector. So it is a very big concern also for UNESCO and for all of us. I think it has to be taken very seriously when proposing solution for the after COVID-19 crisis.
Thank you very much, Mr. Motoko. If I could raise the same question to Ms. Martins from the African Union. You mentioned many initiatives to celebrate this year of arts, culture, and heritage in the African Union, but are you also integrating the impact of the pandemic in holding manifestations? Will some of them be held virtually? And what advice, what cooperation, how can African countries work more together to use culture to overcome the pandemic, to rebound, and using the culture industries? If you could also shed some light on your perspective on this.
Thank you for the question. When developing the concept note on the theme of the year, we were, of course, mindful of the difficult situation that the continent and also the world is facing, the COVID-19 pandemic. So there was a clear directive by the leadership of the Union that we should establish synergies with activities related to building up the public health sector in the continent, and in order to also organize activities related to the raising awareness on the status of the pandemic, and this was done. So I didn't mention those ones, but we have activities that my colleagues working in the health sector are going to undertake related to the prevention measures, vaccines on the COVID-19 pandemic. Also, I mentioned the event that we are going to hold on the 25th of May, the launch of the Great Museum of Africa. So in the planning for this launch, we also want to pass key messages related to misinformation on vaccines on COVID-19. And we use African artists and other key stakeholders to pass these key messages. In 2020, we also organized a very big concert, online concert during Africa Day, where the artists were sensitizing member states on prevention measures related to COVID-19 pandemic. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Foué, you wish to add to this from the ground, living in Mali, how do you see this? Thank you.
I want to share one thing. I don't know if you can see, but this is what the young artists in Mali have done. So they have used their skills and the art to really, as you mentioned before me, promote, what the preventive measures are important. In Mali, two things maybe. First, Mali will receive the AstraZeneca vaccine next Friday. So they will be the first country in Central Sahel. So I hope this will shed some light at the end of the tunnel. We all know how important it is also. We will not be safe until everyone is safe. But in Mali, as you know, cotton is a very important artistic and cultural industry. So we were able to promote the wearing of masks that are locally made and really encourage the production of locally made preventive measures, whether it's the mask or the soap, for example. Those are also very important products that are done in Mali and could really stimulate the economy, as we all know how challenging it has been. The second probably solution that has been helped to go through that journey is really a shock responsive social protection mechanism that has given some safety nets or cash, if you wish, but linked to productivity for industry, the artisanal, and also the artistic families, I will say. You know, Somali is well known for the music. So it was important to really get some incentives to help them to go through the challenging moment of not necessarily able to do concert, to do manifestation. So this is in the making, but those are really Malian-made solution, if you wish. Back to you.
Thank you very much. This is very interesting also in terms of the examples you mentioned and the concrete initiatives. I have a question actually, maybe particularly turned to UNESCO and to the African Union. You know, one of the threads of the first edition of the Aswan Forum was that, you know, internationally and continentally in Africa, we have a lot of valuable policy instruments and treaties and intergovernmental bodies and national action plans, but it is often implementation that is lagging behind. You know, is this a question, is this a challenge of capacity building? Is this a challenge of funding? Is it both of them? Where does the private sector and its contribution fit into this picture? And that how can we overcome the challenge we face in implementation beyond just having the right policy instruments and frameworks in place? If maybe we could start with this time with you, Mrs. Martins, from the African Union, in terms of, given the number of policy instruments you mentioned, how can we move forward implementation?
Thank you for the question. As you rightly put it, we have a lot of instruments and frameworks, but our main role as the AU is the development and advocacy on the implementation of these instruments. Like you rightly put it, what is missing is implementation. So I think what needs to be done is more engagement with our member states, and also more capacity building. And you also mentioned the PPP, the public-private partnerships, very, very important in order to ensure that the policy instruments that we developed are implemented. We also have a strong engagement with the artists, with the Pan-African cultural institutions working on the continent. I think also they have a key role in assisting the African Union, reaching out to the member states for the full implementation of the policy instruments that we developed, and also assisting us in resource mobilizing and in creating these partnerships with the public sector. I thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think all these are very good suggestions and very useful. Turning to Mr. Matoko from UNESCO, I'm sure this is also an issue that is often raised in UNESCO's work. Thank you for your perspectives on this.
Yes, thank you. This is a very crucial question. In fact, I mean, I cannot but agree with what Angela said, but let me go a little bit far. One of the issues that we face in the implementation of all these instruments, all these conventions, is actually the capacity of African states and governments to implement in terms of human resources. So capacity building. Let me give you an example. You know, the Africa, in spite of being one of the continent where certainly we have the most beautiful cultural sites, we're also the continent where we have the the lower number of cultural sites inscribed in the world list, simply because we are not able to provide the good files to the international committee. It takes many years for one. There are a few exceptions like Egypt, Ethiopia, etc. But if you go further down in Central Africa, you find there are even countries that do not have any cultural site inscribed in the. And I'm also, I want also, of course, I'm including also what now we call the intangible heritage, which music, art, dancing, etc. we are very, so it's a question of capacity building. Certainly a question of funding. If we don't have the private sector involved in the mobilization of, if you don't have what they call here mécène or this mécénat, I mean, the private sector providing, supporting the government efforts, we won't go. And we have domestic resources. We have a dynamic private sector. We need to sensitize them on this, on the importance of culture. And finally, I think also one element that we cannot ignore, maybe not in all countries, the political will. How much do we spend in Africa in terms of national budget for culture? Less than 5%, certainly, compared to other sectors. So that's also one area where we need to do some additional work with the government, national governments. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Matoko. I think you also converged with the speaker from the African Union on some of the suggestions needed to, and the options, the actions needed to move forward implementation. But you mentioned in particular political will and the role of governments, and their importance. And I think it makes an excellent transition to finally, I think, welcome our distinguished speaker from Angola. We are honored to be joined by His Excellency Jomo Francisco Fortunato, His Excellency the Minister of Culture, Tourism and Environment of the Republic of Angola. Welcome, sir. Sir.
Welcome. Merci.
Merci.
Je vais parler en français. Je vais parler en français.
Merci. Alors, je veux juste vous poser la question pour vous remercier de votre participation et aussi vous féliciter, bien sûr, pour la Biennale de Luanda que votre gouvernement a organisée en 2019, qui est la même année de la tenue du Forum d'Assouan, en décembre 2019. Donc, nos forums, nos initiatives sont nées la même année et elles viennent se rejoindre un peu maintenant. Quelles leçons tirez-vous donc de cette première édition de la Biennale de Luanda et comment voyez-vous l'avenir pour faire avancer cette question de la culture de la paix et sa contribution au développement et à la paix durable en Afrique? Merci beaucoup. À vous, Monsieur le Ministre.
Merci. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, distincts invités, je suis honoré de m'adresser à vous à l'occasion de cet grand événement appelé le Forum de Houssin pour la paix et le développement durable. Je vous considère comme extrêmement important pour l'avenir de notre continent. Je commence mon intervention en rendant un simple hommage à tous les enfants de notre continent, prometteurs en particulier aux hommes et femmes angolais qui ont beaucoup fait pour garantir le renforcement de l'angolanité et de la citoyenne ainsi que la mémoire des hommes et des femmes de la culture que nous ont quittés prématurément et ont réaffirmé la valeur de leur contribution indélébile à la sauvegarde et la valorisation de la culture. Vos Excellences, depuis quelque temps déjà, notre devise est la culture de la paix et de le partage des expériences, des connaissances, des émotions que nous ont fait nous rencontrer, nous retrouver entre présents et participer, que nourrit et nourrira sûrement de nombreuses attentes. Ce que les institutions nous recommandent, à savoir l'Unesco et l'Union africaine, c'est de faire un débat large et profond de nos idées auxquelles nous engagerons tout à travers un réseau étendu et puissant visant à surmonter les grands défis de l'Afrique dans lequel les idées et les actions sont combinées tout en plaçant comme les principaux agents de la culture de la paix comme un lien très puissant que nous rassemble car la culture est le principal promoteur de la paix. La République de l'Angola, à travers les départements ministériels responsables du secteur de la culture, du tourisme et de l'environnement, est convaincue qu'une posture plus active est en effet une obligation dans la recherche de nouvelles et meilleures voies auxquelles elle se propose d'affirmer la culture nationale. Cependant, l'intervention du ministère de la Culture, du Tourisme et de l'Environnement de la République de l'Angola s'est fait dans le sens d'un appel au renoncement à la manipulation de la culture et au respect de la nature riche et plurielle pour comprendre la culture comme un facteur fondamental du développement durable. Pour la République de l'Angola, le développement durable doit avoir la culture comme point de départ et une référence obligatoire et permanente. Le développement ne sera durable si l'homme comme le premier et dernier bénéficiaire. Ces défis, les transformations qui se produisent à un rythme jamais vu auparavant par l'humanité exigent que nous ne restions pas indifférents, que nous mettions rapidement en œuvre des actions concrètes, des choix conscients et des efforts communs. Bien évidemment que la construction et le maintien de la paix et le développement, de durabilité de la paix et le développement durable des sociétés sont des engagements pour tout. Ils réclament l'engagement de les gens. Il est configuré comme une œuvre que sans l'accord de tous les efforts ne pourra pas profiter de ses bénéfices. Dans cette longue période de temps, depuis l'institutionnalisation d'un organe directeur de la politique et de la stratégie culturelle, avec l'entrée en vigueur de la politique culturelle de l'Angola, on a supposé que l'État ne pourra pas marcher seul dans cette tâche. Par conséquent, il pourra se joindre d'autres États en établissement des accords de coopération indépendamment de leur système politique et idéologique, comme moyen de joindre les efforts pour créer un monde meilleur où règne la paix, le bien-être, la compréhension et le respect mutuel. La culture de la paix est un objectif réalisable afin que nous puissions atteindre plus rapidement notre but souhaité de progrès et de développement durable. La culture renforce la nation, plus culture, plus de l'Angola. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, merci Monsieur le Ministre pour cette intervention riche sur l'expérience de l'Angola. Mais si je me permets de vous demander sur la prochaine édition de la Biennale de Luanda, si vous pouvez nous en parler et l'avenir de cette initiative de la Biennale de Luanda sur la culture de la paix, Monsieur le Ministre.
La Biennale, c'est un événement très important pour l'Afrique, pour le monde. Nous sommes préparés et nous sommes en train de créer des conditions par que la Biennale, je pense que sera une hésiteuse événement avec la participation de tous les invités. Nous sommes en ce moment en train de préparer l'organisation pour la réalisation de la prochaine biennale de la paix.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Ministre, et nous espérons que nous puissions à cette occasion développer les liens entre le Forum d'Assouan et la Biennale de Luanda, et ce serait avec grand plaisir. I would like to now thank all our speakers and maybe give them, if they wish, the opportunity to make any final statements or messages they wish to convey. Or in terms of recommendations for the forum. The Aswan Forum will have a number of conclusions. So if you wish to share any specific recommendation or suggestions, you are more than welcome. And maybe I would actually invite you maybe to answer a question that we were wondering, if there is the need, or how can we further make the connection, the bridge between the cultural institutions, the work on culture, and the efforts to achieve peace building, to move forward, peace consolidation, peace efforts. If you have any suggestions on how we can, in a concrete manner, make this bridge better, we would welcome it and give you the opportunity to have a final round. Maybe I start with Mr. Matoko from Unesco, if you wish to take the floor.
Oui, merci, merci, monsieur le modérateur. Je vais m'exprimer en français cette fois-ci. Je crois qu'avec tous les moyens de communication que nous avons, et aujourd'hui, vous voyez, vous réussissez à rassembler autant d'intervenants, chacun en restant chez soi, on n'a plus l'excuse de dire qu'on ne peut pas se parler, qu'on ne peut pas communiquer. Donc, il faudrait mettre en réseau tous ceux et celles qui travaillent, que ce soit institutions, individus, mettre en réseau tous ceux qui travaillent sur les questions de culture et de paix ensemble. Et je pense que soit des réseaux virtuels, il en existe déjà, soit quand l'occasion se présentera, et c'est pourquoi avec l'Union africaine et les chefs d'État du continent africain, nous avons bâti cet espace de la Biennale de Luanda, vous avez par du futur, qui se réunira tous les 2 ans et qui est un espace où on peut partager toutes nos expériences, communiquer. Et je crois que c'est important que le continent africain se rende compte que la Biennale de Luanda, pour la culture de la paix, ça doit être l'équivalent du FESPACO, du Festival de Carthage, ou etc. Ces endroits où on peut tous se réunir, échanger d'expériences et regarder l'avenir de la même façon, regarder la paix dans le continent africain comme un objectif commun. Voilà, je crois que c'est ce que je peux dire à ce stade, et merci encore de nous avoir associés à ces discussions, et félicitations à votre organisation, bien sûr.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup. Ms. Martins from the African Union, if you have any a final message.
Thank you, Ambassador. My final message would be to call upon the whole continent and all friends of arts and culture on the continent to join the African Union in the celebration of the Year of Arts, Culture and Heritage. This is a unique year, even though we have challenges of the pandemic. Activities will be organized, if possible, physically, but mainly online. So we call upon everybody to join the African Union in the celebration of the Year of Arts, Culture and Heritage. And once again, I thank Egypt for this opportunity to participate in this wonderful initiative. I thank you.
Thank you very much. And the call is well heard, and we in Egypt are very eager, and not only in the government, but in through different sectors to be part of that celebration. Ms. Fouré from Mali, if you have a final intervention.
Maybe a last word on my side, in addition to really networking and building on what has been done, probably also using how you can bring up linking youth initiatives on this part, because we know dialogue you know, and the new generation is also critical. One thing I've been surprised sometimes is maybe thinking how you can bridge with the getting more knowledge into the curriculum of all those beautiful heritage in Africa that is not often taking, you know, at the systemic way in the education. I've been surprised when engaging with Equation Nomad I was referring earlier, where we are bringing youth from young people from all of the parts of Mali. Sometimes they never visited those sites or not even aware of. And I think it will be important to, thanks, now we have digital ways of doing things, think of how you could also transmit and document those beautiful history and heritage that all the young generation needs to be proud about and aware of. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for mentioning youth. And for this edition of the Aswan Dialogue, Aswan Forum, we'll have for the first time a youth dialogue as part of the Aswan Forum. So it really goes to your point about youth. Monsieur le ministre, dernière question, profitant de cette dernière remarque sur la jeunesse. La jeunesse, c'est la plus grande, c'est la part la plus importante de la population en Afrique. Et comment voyez-vous de mobiliser les jeunes autour de la jeunesse, les jeunes autour de la culture? Comment mobiliser les jeunes autour de la culture au service du développement durable, Monsieur le ministre? Monsieur le ministre, vous m'entendez? Monsieur le ministre.
Répétez la question.
Oui, la dernière intervenante avait parlé sur l'importance de la jeunesse. Et en effet, la jeunesse constitue la plus grande partie de la population de l'Afrique. Donc, comment peut-on mobiliser la jeunesse autour de la culture pour le développement durable et la paix, Monsieur le ministre?
La culture, c'est un élément plus important pour la compréhension de l'histoire et de l'avenir pour le peuple et fondamentalement pour la jeunesse. Je pense que l'école et l'éducation, c'est un moyen très important pour divulguer la culture et pour la connaissance de l'histoire ancienne de l'Afrique. L'Afrique est synonyme de la culture. La culture de l'Afrique, proprement, comme la culture universelle. Je pense que le renforcement de la famille, le renforcement des moyens de communication et de l'école, la famille fondamentalement, sera un moyen de transmission de les valeurs de la culture et du savoir de l'Afrique. L'école, la famille et les moyens de communication sociale en Afrique sont très vecteurs importants pour la divulgation de l'Afrique pour la jeunesse. L'Afrique, la paix, c'est la culture, c'est une condition indispensable pour l'établissement de la paix, je pense.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le ministre. Et je crois que vous avez mentionné notamment les réseaux sociaux. Et c'est vrai qu'ils ont une part grandissante, importante, pour même aussi la diffusion des savoirs et de la culture. Et au Forum d'Assouan, cette année, cette édition se fait en partenariat avec Twitter, le réseau social, le grand réseau social aussi que beaucoup de jeunes utilisent. Et nous avons aussi voulu marquer cela. Sur vos paroles, Monsieur le ministre, on vient à la fin de cette session. On va clôturer cette session. I would like to thank you, all our distinguished speakers, for being with us for this session at the Aswan Forum, the first session we have in the editions of the Aswan Forum on the contribution of culture, arts, and heritage for sustainable peace and development on the occasion of this African Union Year 2021 that is devoted to these themes. And we want to thank you once again for your contribution. Thank you. And this session will be followed by a short interview with an artist from the Democratic Republic of Congo, who is chairing the African Union this year, Freddy Tsimba, and all his artwork is devoted to the issue of peace and denouncing conflict and the effects of conflict on society. And we thought that it would be a very nice complement to this session. It will be streamed immediately after the end of this session, and I invite you to watch it with us also. Thank you once more, and greetings here from Cairo, from the studio of the Aswan Forum.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Merci.
Merci.
Freddy Tsimba est un plasticien congolais né en 1967 à Kinshasa, capitale de la République démocratique du Congo. Depuis la fin des années 1990, il récupère des matériaux métalliques dans les champs de bataille, les douilles, les cartouchières et dans la rue, les cuillères, les capsules, les clés pour les transformer en sculptures, souvent de grandes dimensions. Ces sculptures cherchent à exprimer les victimes anonymes des guerres et à transcender leurs souffrances. De même, ces sculptures cherchent à promouvoir la résilience de personnes confrontées à un conflit. Monsieur Tsimba, nous sommes très heureux de vous avoir avec nous aujourd'hui et nous nous réjouissons de votre participation au Forum d'Aswan pour la paix et le développement durable.
Merci beaucoup. Je suis ému aussi, moi, et je vous remercie.
Monsieur Tsimba, l'Union africaine a officiellement adopté le thème pour l'année 2021 sur l'art, culture et patrimoine comme levier pour construire l'Afrique que nous voulons. Les arts peuvent jouer un rôle très important pour sensibiliser le public sur les conséquences néfastes des conflits et les bienfaits de la paix. Votre démarche artistique s'inscrit dans ce cadre. Pourriez-vous nous en parler en détail, y compris sur l'accueil de ces œuvres et des messages qu'ils véhiculent sur les conflits et la guerre, en tenant compte que vous venez d'un pays qui a connu des conflits armés prolongés dans les années dernières?
Merci beaucoup. Et je suis ému parce que c'est par la culture et par l'art que moi je pense que l'Afrique a beaucoup de choses à donner, parce que l'Afrique est très très riche. Souvent on oublie, on parle plus des richesses minières, mais on oublie la richesse culturelle et artistique que l'Afrique regorge. Oui, pour parler de mon travail, je pense que quand une fois, il y a une vingtaine d'années, plus même je pense, quand j'ai vu en Somalie, quand une femme courait pour aller récupérer la nourriture, cette image m'avait frappé, et cette image a conduit mon travail pour essayer de trouver pourquoi qu'est-ce qui se passait pour que cette femme-là arrive à souffrir avec ses enfants au dos. Et voilà, donc du coup je me suis lancé pour chercher l'élément, c'était la douille des cartouches. Malheureusement, mon pays a souffert par rapport à la guerre et mine de rien, je suis allé faire le tour dans le sens contraire pour aller récupérer les douilles. Et quand j'en ai récupéré, j'ai fait des corps de femmes, des corps des hommes pour dénoncer, parler de cela, mais aussi des machettes pour dire que voilà, les machettes c'est pas pour tuer, c'est pour donner vie et aider l'homme à aller de l'avant. L'accueil des gens qui regardent les œuvres, ils sont pas, ça laisse personne indifférent. Les gens ils sont touchés parce qu'ils se retrouvent, et pour eux c'est aussi une façon de regretter, de dire pourquoi on peut vivre tranquille avec tout ce qu'on a comme richesse entre nous et chercher à se faire du mal. Et ce message va au-delà même de mon pays, parce que je me dis je suis humain, œuvre de paix. Au Congo, l'œuvre est toujours remue beaucoup les personnes, que ce soit les dirigeants, que ce soit aussi la population, parce que ça leur parle. Quand on voit une œuvre, par exemple, une œuvre, la Maison Machette exposée dans un lieu public, notamment dans un marché populaire, où il y a plus de 100 000 personnes qui passent chaque jour pour acheter, vendre des choses, ça parle et ça les a parlé. L'œuvre n'est pas des gens indifférents. J'ai parlé des douilles de cartouches. La douille qui normalement est faite pour tuer. Quand on fait des corps, c'est pour dire, voilà, nous voulons que ça ne tue plus. ces deux des cartouches doivent, à la place, donnons l'éducation, donnons les moyens, créons des universités, créons des hôpitaux. Je pense qu'il faut que ça commence maintenant. Il faut qu'on arrive à mettre la culture au devant de la scène parce que c'est par là que les gens ils vont donner de la fierté.
Et c'est vraiment très intéressant. Et si pour conclure, vous pouvez nous dire quelques mots sur comment est-ce que l'art peut contribuer maintenant dans cette situation difficile à promouvoir la paix et le développement en Afrique.
On passera par la culture. On passe par la culture. C'est le plus grand pont que le monde ou la vie nous a donné. Et c'est à nous d'emprunter ces ponts pour aller vers l'excellence. Et je pense que c'est ça. Pour l'Afrique, pour tout ce qui se passe maintenant, c'est à nous aussi de nous prendre en charge. De comprendre qu'on ne peut pas vivre si on est séparé, si on est individuel. On doit se mettre ensemble avec nos différences, avec nos richesses, avec nos pauvretés ou richesses, ou rire et pleurs, arriver à trouver des bases pour nos enfants. Et on doit passer par l'éducation. L'éducation par la culture, vraiment. Et je pense que la culture, on doit la mettre devant. On doit tout le temps faire ça. Si on le fait, je pense qu'il y aurait moins de problèmes par rapport à ça.
Je vous remercie infiniment. C'était un entretien très intéressant pour moi personnellement et pour le forum.
Je suis ému vraiment. Merci beaucoup.
Vos
questions
votre
qui m'ont
temps.
touché. Merci.